When it comes to text-to-speech, ElevenLabs is my go-to. Between the quality, for the price, it's kind of a no-brainer for me. I used it for free for a while and it did very well, and I saw other things that I could do with it. So I went ahead and subscribed. It's $5 a month and I absolutely love it. So let's go play around and see what it's all about, what you can do with it. The main event here is the speech synthesis page, and this is what it'll by default drop you into, where you just type in the text that you want. I've typed in a little blurb here already so that you didn't have to hear me click on my keyboard while we were doing this, and you'll pick a voice. And we have, these are ones that I have recently used. There are clones. I've cloned my voice. And there are also ones that have been generated, and then of course the pre-made. You'll see these pre-made voices even on the free plan. When you come in here, this might be all that you see right off the bat is the pre-mades. So we've typed in our text here. I pick a voice. I'm going to stick with Daniel since he's in there, and then hit generate.
I'm glad you've joined me today and hope you're finding this useful. If so, please come back again soon.
One thing I don't like about that particular voice is that there are some, I don't know, it seems like the word gaps are just a hair too long, but I can always edit that when I'm putting together the video so I don't get too excited about it. Now, if you don't like what you're getting, if you're not happy with the voice, you can come up here to voice settings and you have a few things that you can play with. First thing that we probably want to look at is this yellow alert down here, which is telling us we recommend switching to the 11 multilingual V1 model to get the best quality for this voice. I have found that ElevenLabs is absolutely spot on when they make this recommendation. If you have this alert, you have it set to V2, and they say you should probably use V1, you should probably use V1. Likewise, there'll be ones that maybe you by default come up as V1, and it'll say, hey, you should probably use V2, and switch to V2. Now, what you'll notice when we switch to V1 is that we're going to lose a couple things, like this speaker boost, which boosts the similarity of the synthesized speech at the cost of generation speed, so it's a little slower, but it does improve the similarity. You'll also lose this style exaggeration, which you can see when we're trying to use this voice in multilingual V2. We have the option for style exaggeration, but the whole thing is pink, and what that's telling us is it's pretty unstable at any amount, style exaggeration, for this voice in V1. So since that's not going to benefit us too much, we're not going to lose much by losing that option. We will still have, when we make the change, we'll still have the clarity and similarity enhancement. We want to go toward the high side so that we get a nice quality voice, but if we go too high, and we don't know what that number is exactly, but if we end up going too high, we'll get some artifact. We'll have fuzzy dust and dirt, it seems like, in around the voice, or little electronic sounds or whatnot that we don't really want. So if we go too high, we know we need to back it down a little bit. If we're on the low end, it might not be as clear. The speech may not be as clear and perfect, but it won't have the gobbledygook artifact in there. So this is one slider that you might just have to play with to find the sweet spot. And the first setting up here, which we're going to retain when we switch this to V1, is the variable stable scale. So the closer we move that to the left is the more variable the voice will be. So it will be more expressive. But what can happen with that is if you have it too variable, then when you generate another, say you type in one paragraph, you generate it, it sounds good, you want to use it, and then you want to do another paragraph for the same project, you have the same speaker saying something different in the same project. If you have this variability, if you're too far on the variability side, the second thing that you have this voice character say might not sound a whole lot like the first one. So it'll be inconsistent and maybe a little odd. So you switch over, you move to more stable, particularly if you're going to be using a voice for more than one generation here, more than one hunk of content that you're trying to go text to speech on. The other thing is, another reason you might want to consider not making it too far to the left or too variable is because sometimes you'll generate and you'll find that, for instance here, I start this with I'm glad you've joined me. You might listen to it and say, I like that, but the way this speaker talks, I think it would sound better if it said, I am glad you joined me, instead of I'm. And then, so if you do that and you have this set to quite variable and hit generate, the regeneration of that might not sound like the first one that you really liked. So that's another reason that you might want to tend to go more towards stable. And I like my voices to be pretty expressive. I don't want anything to sound like a dial tone or my monotonous voice. So I tend to leave them down about here. Plus, I'm okay with taking the gamble that if I make a change, it might tweak a little bit. But let's go ahead and change this, like ElevenLabs says, to multilingual V1. Okay, we're good. And you see those options that I told you are gone. We no longer have that style exaggeration, and we no longer have that boost option. But that's okay. They don't work well with this voice anyway. So we will leave this guy at 40 and 75. And here's our sentence. I'm glad you've joined me today, and I hope you are finding this useful. If so, please come back again soon. I intentionally wanted to include two different sentences here so that we can see what it does between sentences, how it breaks between those. And I also included a comma, and I wanted to use some contractions as well. That's why I did I'm glad you've. Sometimes you end up changing the text to better match the speaker. You're like, oh, I really like that voice, but that voice wouldn't be saying this word. They would use that word instead. So let's just try this and see what it does.
I'm glad you've joined me today and hope you are finding this useful. If so, please come back again soon.
Now, that is a voice that I found in the voice library, I believe. We can go look. I will tell you that of the pre-made voices, the only one that I found that I really liked, and if we're talking on like a grading scale, like a lot of these to me, I'd give them maybe a C. But Anthony, I give him an A++. But here's the problem with Anthony. Everybody is using him for everything, everywhere. I'm sure you'll recognize this voice.
I'm glad you've joined me today and hope you are finding this useful. If so, please come back again soon.
What a great voice. But again, the problem is that everybody's using it. So I don't really want anything I do to sound like the same voice that's all over the internet everywhere. Now, what we can do is we can bring this down. We can take this down to 30. We'll see what the difference is. And we can take this clarity, similarity. Maybe we move this down. I don't know, see what it does. Move that to 60, see what it helps us for. Now the style exaggeration, it does not recommend us doing that, but for this voice, it's not necessarily stable, but let's give it a shot. This is what ElevenLabs is all about, just experimenting, picking different voices, moving these sliders around until you get what you're looking for. So we made a couple changes there. Let's see.
I'm glad you've joined me today and hope you are finding this useful. If so, please come back again soon.
Okay, so you notice he definitely changed things up there for Anthony. I noticed that the pauses were a little bit different, and some of the, I don't know, maybe the enunciations were just a little bit different too. Let's exaggerate that style way up here into the unstable and midway and see what it does.
I'm glad you've joined me today and hope you are finding this useful. If so, please come back again soon.
Yeah, so he really changed up some things there, and I don't think it was for the better. So we'll stop with that. And that is basically all that you do. You pick your voice, you drop your text in, make adjustments if you want to. We can always go back to where we started, say on this particular voice, by just saying to default, and that moves all the sliders back where they were to begin with. So in here we also have your recently used at the top, and then cloned. Yes, I cloned my voice. We also have the generated. Those are ones that I've generated in the Voice Lab, and those that I've added from the Voice Library. So let's go look at the Voice Lab and the Voice Library and see what those look like. So the Voice Lab, this is where you create voices. If you're on even the $5 a month plan or above, you can clone voices with the instant cloning. On the free deal, I think you can create a voice, but it's going to be an completely AI created voice. So we click that, add, and then we can go to voice design. That's what we want to do to design a completely from scratch voice. We'll click that. We tell it What gender do you want it to be? Let's do female because we haven't done anything with that yet. You can choose the age range, young, middle-aged, and old. I find that the middle-aged tends to be old sounding a lot of times too. You can pick an accent, any kind of, they have a few here, American, British, African, Australian, and Indian. We'll stick with American since that's what I speak. And the accent strength, do you want that on the low end or the high end? And it has it at fairly high, probably a good place to start. And they give you this little blurb of text to start off with. We'll use that, that's fine.
First, we thought the PC was a calculator. Then we found out how to turn numbers into letters, and we thought it was a typewriter.
I mean, that's a pretty good voice. Right how it is, that's a pretty good voice. We can play with it a little bit, move this, let's just move that all the way up and see what happens. You are using against your monthly quota when you generate voices, when you're playing around in the voice lab and creating these voices, whatever you're having them say, it is using part of your monthly character allotment. So keep that in mind.
First, we thought the PC was a calculator. Then we found out how to turn numbers into letters, and we thought it was a typewriter.
That's pretty good. I mean, that sounds pretty decent. If you don't have to use this particular blurb, if you want to use something different, you can, and definitely that might help you make sure that whatever voice you're picking, there's a difference between the voice you might want to have read a fiction novel audiobook that's about a fantasy story in the forest versus the type of voice you might want for a sales page or something like that, a sports video. So if you have, a chunk of content, a blurb of text that really goes with what you do, drop it in here and use it while you're playing with these voices. Let's see what we get if we leave all these things set the same way and we drop in our honey fact.
Did you know that honey never spoils? Archaeologists have found pots of honey in ancient Egyptian tombs that are over 3,000 years old and still perfectly good to eat.
Now, did you notice that although I changed nothing, when I regenerated or when I generated again, it was a completely different voice than the last time? Yeah, so if you get a voice that you like, you want to go ahead and tell it, use that voice so that you can save that voice. Otherwise, when it regenerates, it's going to generate you a female, young, American accent with whatever you have the slider on, but it's not going to be the same one that you just hit generate on. So if you like it, you want to click use voice and hang on to it. And then of course you'll be able to make the adjustments when you're on the synthesis screen, when you're actually creating the speech from text. You'll be able to make those same adjustments about the clarity, similarity, variableness, and all that kind of thing. But let's play a little bit more. Let's say we want a male, we'll pick middle-aged. I guess we can stay with American and high. Generate.
Did you know that honey never spoils? Archaeologists have found pots of honey in ancient Egyptian tombs that are over 3,000 years old and still perfectly good to eat.
Yeah, I mean, he's okay, but let me show you this. We do nothing. We hit generate again.
Did you know that honey never spoils? Archaeologists have found pots of honey in ancient Egyptian tombs that are over 3,000 years old and still perfectly good to eat.
Completely different voice. So still male, middle-aged, American. You can tweak in between attempts here, and I think we will. I think we're going to take this back down to 150. But you're basically, every time you hit generate, you're saying, let me try something else. Let me try something else. But like I know I want a male, middle-aged American. Try this. You like it, use it. If you want to try again, just hit generate again.
Did you know that honey never spoils? Archaeologists have found pots of honey in ancient Egyptian tombs that are over 3,000 years old and still perfectly good to eat.
That's kind of how that works. I'm not going to keep any of these voices. If I generated one here that I liked, I could hit use voice and it will pop it into this list for me. On this $5 a month plan, I think it's the starter maybe, you can have up to 10 things in your voice lab, 10 saved things in your voice lab. I'm already using 8, but let's go over to the voice library, which is just a treasure trove. And what you have in the voice library is these are all the voices that other users have created. And they created them the same way that we just did, going to the voice lab, telling it the gender, age, accent, and accent strength, and hitting generate. And they found one they liked, and they saved it and made it available in the voice library. That's how these things end up here. So in here you have tons, just tons and tons and tons of voices to pick from. You can filter if you want. You can sort them by trending latest, most used, most characters generated. And you can also do the filtering here. So if you want professional and voice design, professional I think are the ones that were created by ElevenLabs. Not absolutely certain about that. Pick the gender you wanted, the age, and then the accent. And these are a little quicker to run through, so we can come look at this guy.
So is cheerfulness, or a good temper. The more it is spent, the more remains.
I'm not interested in age. People who tell me their age are silly. You're as old as you feel.
Before you put on a frown, make absolutely sure there are no smiles available.
And what these will all do is they'll just use some random, usually it's some kind of quotes that they use, but each time you play a sample, you're going to get whatever they decided the sample to be. If you want to hear it say your text, if you want to hear it speak your text, you'll need to add it to your voice lab and then go from there. But there are literally a bunch of these. And one of the problems that you will have is if you look at the voices that are really, really, really popular, 227 million characters of audio generated. So that means this guy is being used a lot. So that's kind of something to be mindful of. Like I say with Anthony, the pre-made voice that is really, really good, but unfortunately everyone uses it. So if you want to be different, that's probably not the way to go. But I'm going to come back over here to this one.
Before you put on a frown, make absolutely sure there are no smiles available.
Sort of like his style. So let's add him to the voice lab, and I'm going to just leave his name as Dan Dan. So what that did is I sort of picked him out of the library and I added him to my voice lab. So yep, right there he is. And edit doesn't get you much in here. The only thing you can edit is you can delete tags, or you can change the description, or you can change its name. When you're in here editing, you're not doing anything that actually changes the style of the voice. So Dan Dan, I want to use his voice, so I'm going to click use, which brings us over here. We've got Dan Dan. Look at our voice settings. He's using V1, which is what's recommended since there's no alert here. And let's just see what happens with old Dan Dan.
I'm glad you've joined me today and hope you are finding this useful. If so, please come back again soon.
Yeah, I'm not in love with that. And that it happens quite often where I go over there to the voice library and I find something that sounds pretty great. And then when I bring it in and I put it with the, when I have it speak the text that I've written, I'm like, yeah, no, that doesn't fit. Doesn't fit at all. So it's no big deal. You can just come right back over to your voice lab and delete him. He's gone forever. Don't worry about it. Or, you know, we can mess around with him a little bit here. Let's change him down to a little bit more variable, more expressive. We'll go right up against that don't go there line. And I think we'll leave that clarity similarity. We'll just see.
I'm glad you've joined me today and hope you are finding this useful. If so, please come back again soon.
That sounds much better. I don't know that I'm loving it, that I would use it necessarily, but we brought the expressiveness up and the stability down much better, and he sounds less like the style that was over in the voice library. So that definitely would be better for us because he's not going to sound exactly like what everybody else has. Might still be too close, you know, for comfort. That's what you're doing with ElevenLabs. Again, you're going to start off on this page. You can pick from pre-made voices. You can adjust those settings as we just went through. Follow the advice of any alerts that come up telling you to switch model. Explore voices by going to the voice lab and either creating them or coming over to the voice library and picking through what some others have created. One thing that I do like about this voice library over here, and again, I tend to look for ones that aren't being used everywhere, But you can find tags that people have added. I wish there was a way to search for them. I haven't found it yet. But you can find tags that people have added that they feel the voice is best suited for, maybe for narratives and stories or educational or what have you. There also might be some tags in here like a southern accent. Maybe it's something you can't specify when you're creating the voice, but it happens to come out that way when you've created it. And so you kind of mark that and hang on to it. I hope you found this useful. If you want to look at other ways that you can save time and money and automate stuff and make your life easier, watch this video right here. Oh, almost forgot. There is a link in the description for ElevenLabs. Give it a try. Definitely try the free plan. That's what I started with and was very happy with it. If you do end up making a purchase following my link, I may receive a small commission. It won't cost you a penny more, and I certainly do appreciate it.